Welcome back, everyone. It's here. And today I've got some r/BestOf for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the posts, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. This post was collected by Choice Evidence 1983, and their tagline is, "It dawned on me that he was a wizard." Content warning right out the gate for cancer, abuse, emotional manipulation, mentions of alcoholism and pet theft, golden child syndrome, and mental health struggles. The original OP is Mirror Mama, posted to r/Am I the Asshole, July 2nd, 2026. Am I the asshole for staying no contact with my family even though my stepmother is dying? I'm female 36, my husband is male 34, my father is male 60. Stepmother, female, I think late 50s, early 60s. My stepmother is dying of cancer. She was apparently diagnosed somewhere around a year ago to my knowledge, and although she apparently went through many treatments, things have deteriorated very quickly. She's now only expected to have a few days, when she was told a couple months ago that it was looking like a possible 12 months plus. My aunt called me today and asked me to put everything behind us and go see her before she dies. She thinks I'll regret it if I don't. The problem is, I don't actually want to. For some background, my relationship with my stepmother was never openly abusive in a noticeable way. It was more years of subtle digs, passive-aggressive comments, and feeling like my thoughts and opinions didn't matter, and my input was often rejected in family discussions. She sometimes spoke negatively about my mom in front of me in my youth, and if something went wrong in my life, there always seemed to be an implication that I'd somehow brought it on myself. She always offered to help with things I needed, like cover letter writing or jobs when I was younger, etc. But in times where I needed her to use her maturity and compassion, she would side with my brother, her mother, and my sister and I's points would be squashed. She once growled at me, "You're not a parent, so you can't tell me anything about raising a child." When I brought up with her that I was concerned about my brother being left to play computer games for days on end until he toileted himself and sat in it, I was chastised for speaking up while he was told he lost his games for a week, but would have then returned by the end of the day. I was a youth and my brother was around 4. My dad always sided with her, even when it felt she was clearly out of line. He'd either defend her or tell me to let it go. Over time, I stopped feeling like I had a dad who was really in my corner. Her mother also had a serious alcohol problem and would become verbally abusive towards me when she drank. Instead of standing up for me, my dad and stepmother would tell me to stay quiet because otherwise, she'd keep everyone awake by drinking more, shouting and slamming doors. I was basically expected to accept being spoken to like that because it made life easier for everyone else. Eventually, I reached my limit. I calmly told her I wasn't willing to be spoken to that way anymore. I wasn't screaming or throwing a tantrum. I simply said I wouldn't accept it. Instead of being supported, I was criticized by both my dad and stepmother. Fast forward a few years. My daughter was born on the 5th of January, 2025. Before she arrived, I sent everyone who planned to meet her a list of newborn boundaries. Things like washing hands, no kissing the baby, no strong perfume, keeping voices down, and giving her back when she needed feeding. One of those boundaries was that anyone with poor hygiene wouldn't be holding my newborn. This became relevant because my half-brother, I sometimes refer to him as brother, has struggled for years with severe depression and self-neglect. I genuinely feel for him because I've struggled with my own mental health before. At the same time, his hygiene had deteriorated to the point that his body odor was overwhelming. When I reluctantly invited him to my wedding, I saw guests around him trying to hide their gagging. My half-brother has also always been the golden child. My stepmother adored him and, in my opinion, enabled him for years rather than encouraging him to become independent. Even before his depression, he was rarely expected to do much for himself. I actually spent years trying to encourage him, telling him he deserved better and was capable of more. But every time I tried, I was told to leave him alone or made to feel like I was causing problems. Months before my daughter was born, I'd already sent everyone the newborn boundaries. My sister later told me that she and my stepmother had discussed the hygiene rule in the car, and my stepmother asked if I was referring to my brother. My sister apparently replied that it was obvious because he was dirty. So, my stepmother already knew exactly who that boundary applied to before they even came to visit. When they came to meet my daughter about 4 weeks after she was born, my stepmother still asked me, in front of everyone if I'd make an exception because he's your brother. I said no. I wasn't trying to embarrass him or punish him. I just wasn't willing to compromise my newborn's health to avoid hurting an adult's feelings. During that same visit, I also spoke to my half-sister. I may sometimes refer to her as sister. She had begged me throughout my pregnancy to be there when I gave birth. Hospital policy technically meant she was too young to attend. It was over 18s only in the birthing suite. And she was a mature 17 at the time, but I arranged everything anyway. Before my induction, she stayed at our house. I cooked her favorite meal, bought snacks, made up the spare room with fresh bedding, and gave her my Switch and PlayStation while we waited. The plan was that once I was moved from the induction ward to the delivery suite, we'd send her an Uber. When that time came, my husband called her, but she said she changed her mind because she was tired and had decided to go to her boyfriend's house instead. When I found out after giving birth, I was devastated. So during the visit, I told her, honestly, how much that had hurt me. She cried and had a panic attack, and Dad said he hadn't known about this and then stayed quiet for the rest of the visit. After that, there was almost complete silence. My stepmother, brother, and sister never called, never texted, never checked how I or my daughter were doing. Before then, I'd always been the one making the effort, especially with my brother. At one point, I realized the last message he'd sent me in over 2 years had only been to remind me it was his birthday because I hadn't messaged him yet, even though it was still the morning of. My dad contacted me a handful of times and I'd send him photos of my daughter. He'd tell me how beautiful she was, but he never asked if I needed help, never offered to visit, never asked how I was coping, and never offered any practical support. I was a first-time mom recovering from childbirth, living with a disability, exhausted, struggling mentally, and trying to adjust to motherhood. I wasn't expecting anyone else to raise my child. I just wanted my dad to look at me, see that I was struggling, and ask, "What do you need?" Instead, it felt like nobody really saw me. During that period, my birthday came and went, and every single year of my life, my dad has wished me a happy birthday. We've spoken on the phone, and he's always sent me a little birthday money. This was the first year that never happened. He also forgot my husband's birthday. I know my stepmother was unwell by then, and I genuinely understand that life must have been incredibly difficult for them. This isn't about the money. What hurt was feeling like I'd quietly stopped existing, at a time when it already felt like the rest of the family had forgotten me. Losing that one tradition with my dad made me feel forgotten too. After around 10 months of this, I blocked everyone. The final straw came when my dad phoned me because he was worried he might be seriously ill. I was genuinely concerned for him, but during the same conversation where he told me he was scared for his life, he suddenly chirpily brought up the fact I'd blocked my sister on Instagram and started grilling me about it. It made me feel like that was what he really wanted to talk about. So, I decided to cut contact completely. Since then, my mental health has improved enormously. My life is peaceful. My daughter is thriving. I don't spend my time walking on eggshells anymore. Now my stepmother is dying, and suddenly I'm being asked to come back because she's family. I don't hate her, and I certainly don't wish this illness on her, but I also don't feel that dying erases years of hurt or makes me responsible for repairing relationships that nobody else tried to repair while there was still time. I've thought a lot about whether I'd regret not seeing her. Honestly, I think I'd be more likely to regret putting myself back into a family dynamic that caused me so much pain than I would regret missing one final goodbye. I also have been dwelling today on my dad, since it made me imagine about the pain of losing a partner. But I'm trying to trust my decision and continue with my own family in my own life and not re-enter a boundary that may very well cause us further distress. Am I the asshole for staying no contact with my family, including my dying stepmother? I'm happy to answer questions. Thanks. Am I the asshole with an H has no consensus bot. OP was unanimously not the asshole. So, when I read the first paragraph of this post, I scribbled down in my notes that making amends before their death allows them to die in peace after a lifetime of forced misery. Well, we don't know exactly where this story goes, but I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into something where they want the stepmother to be able to die in peace, that all the pain that she caused throughout her life won't affect her or won't weigh on her. While OP's the one who's forced to accept an apology that's hollow, An apology that would only ever be given on a deathbed. An apology that means there is no reconciliation afterwards because she's gone. She doesn't have to live with the pain. She gets a smile on her face as she passes, while OP gets to carry the burden and weight that followed a lifetime of misery caused by her. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You're being asked to come back into the fold because your dad doesn't want to be the only person responsible for the immature adults he helped raise with your stepmother, and nobody else in the family does either. Your family wants you back as a caretaker, not because they want you in their lives again. Not the asshole. OP responds, This is what my husband said too. Just to be clear, my dad is not asking for me to come back, but he is trying to reach out / ask how I'm doing. Through my aunt, since I blocked his number. But yes, I feel the possible regret from how everything turned out may be lingering. I don't think that's at the front of his mind at all right now, but I'll perhaps be able to judge at some point in the future. Commenter 2. Not the asshole, and please feel free to respond to your aunt with, Appreciate the update, but my therapist has told me that I should not be in contact with my organic family for my own mental health. You're following orders for your health there. If your aunt argues that, let her know she's not a mental health professional. OP responds, I am actually in therapy now, and my therapist is trying to get me to prioritize myself. They don't know about this situation either. OP on her relationship with her father when it comes to her stepmother. My father has always been a very lighthearted person, always positive, stressed, yet carefree and stoic when needed. I guess I just got punched in the feels about the whole fact of the situation, but I'm worried that that's my former empath tendencies tricking me into going back. All I can think about today is, what if that was my husband about to die? But at the same time, if I reconciled, I honestly don't know what direction my life would look like. I want to stop my feelings ping-ponging. OP on if she has a relationship with her mother. I don't speak to my mother anymore, either, as she dropped my dog off back at the sanctuary I rescued her from while I was on my honeymoon. What the fuck? I came back to no dog and you'll never find her, as another unknowing person came and adopted my dog. I'll never see my baby again. That definitely warranted no contact. I feel you on this one. Commenter 4. Question. How far away does your dad live? You said shortly after giving birth your stepmom was diagnosed with terminal cancer and you felt like your dad wasn't involved enough with you during your postpartum days. Was he a short drive away or a flight? I'm not excusing the past actions. People who go no contact are usually totally justified. But it may be an explanation for lack of involvement if his wife just found out she was dying and you're a few hours away. Not saying it would excuse it, but I'm trying to get a read on your dad and the situation better. OP responds, I live in North London and he's in the South. It would probably take a train or subway/tube about an hour and a half to reach each other. I visited them a few times when I could after my wedding and during my pregnancy ban. They came up once to have a day out with me, and then for the newborn meeting. My dad worked as a paramedic during this time and was very busy with graveyard and long shifts. He also has notoriously bad health in terms of general immune system, which I also have. So I can understand in this respect the restraints he had and myself also, with my disability. My sister came to visit frequently. We were actually inseparable all through her childhood. I became like a sister mother to her, and we had a strong bond. My brother, nothing, obviously, and my stepmom would semi-occasionally text me during my pregnancy, sometimes to ask how I was, but mostly to find out what time my sister would come home from my house. I actually remember something that frequently pops up in my head. My pregnancy announcement. I decided that since my sister and I were doing well in our relationship, I would make her be the one to inadvertently reveal it to my parents after discovering. My husband bought her a Pandora charm since she was into those. It was a silver dummy/blinky. And at the evening dinner, once she realized, she sobbed. I was under the understanding that my fertility was shot, so it was unbelievable. Funnily enough, when she finally caught on, Sister, why do you think it's a dummy? Think about it. And she gasped and cried. My stepmom blurted out, oh my god, OP is pregnant. But not with any smile or elation, just very loud and blasé. My dad looked shocked and almost choked on his bite, and looked happy, but my brother sat in silence, just something that I remember. I wanted my sister to say it out loud, or for my dad to get the announcement more quickly, but as usual, stepmom had to be first. OP's relationship with her aunt. I've told my aunt everything, but my aunt is a very positive person, always looking at the bright side of things and refusing to let the negative in. While I applaud her for such a bright and forgiving attitude, and am even jealous in some ways. I feel like coming from a woman who has also suffered in her life, she just doesn't seem to understand fully that my no contact is protecting me so far and helping the situation. My aunt is wonderful and will always see the best in people, but as a former uncontrollable empath, I see the danger in this mindset. I'm more reality-based thinking now, but just got gripped yesterday as my old empath ways tried to resurface. OP's final comment in the original post. Can I just jump in and say thank you for all the comments? The advice and dialogue has been helpful and is making me quite emotional. Not in a happy or bad way, but in a comfort and self-confrontational way. And it's doing some good. I've heard all your stories and listened to your opinions, and am waiting more for as long as this thread can continue. Thank you everyone for your opinions. Flower emoji. Keep it coming, please. Thank you, hands emoji. Update, July 3rd, 2026, the next day. So, in terms of the near future, I feel this situation will continue to naturally update in one way or another, and I'll eventually update what the final outcome will be based on my final choices if any of you are interested. I'll update in the future on the other subreddit if you can remember me and my story, and I'll link that destination in a comment below when it's posted, if that's permitted. But here goes for today. Update. I had to call my aunt just now to ask her to be my guarantor for us moving house. I missed a message from her earlier that said she was going to my dad's house / stepmother's house bedside today, and when I called, she didn't tell me right away, as I was outside in the heat with 10 bags of groceries and baby and pram, out of breath and rushing my request. After we discussed that matter, she told me she was there paying her respects and saying goodbye. And I apologized for imposing, and that I missed her message and I didn't know. She said not to worry at all. Then she said, "Your dad is next to me. Would you like to speak to him?" But I paused, and before I said, "Not right now," he took the phone from her and said softly, "Wagwan," his usual jolly greeting he always gave me, with a somber undertone I could hear. I was a deer in headlights and said, "I can't do this right now," quite dismissively, and he said, "That's okay, not to worry, I understand," and handed the phone back to my aunt. We then wrapped up the phone call. In that moment, hearing my dad greet me like that for the first time since last February shook my heart a little. His voice was the same person, but I could hear every undertone, his slight hoarseness, exhaustion from his situation. I messaged my aunt after and said, "I appreciate that you're so hoping Dad and I talk again, but I feel like in this moment with everything going on and emotions high, it's not the right time for either of us." She'll take it well and most likely apologize. But now, I'm just sat, staring at the wall, trying to process my feelings. I know you've all said I'm not the asshole, and pretty much all of you, plus my best friend and husband, think I should stay true to no contact. But whatever I choose is fine. I'm silently quaking under the pressure I have right now. Imminent house move, lawyer, court things, etc. And I'm starting to feel desperate that I don't know who I am anymore in this situation and the right path to take. I can't bear how I was treated postpartum and everything else. It stings. And apparently, I'm not a bad person, but why does it kind of feel like I am? Hearing my father's voice so soft and frail in that moment was a side of him I've never heard before. When he spoke, I felt my pupils dilate. I'm gonna hold my own hand when I confess this. I think I miss my dad. Oh my, what should I do? I feel lost. I can't concentrate. I feel a pressure in my chest. It feels like, I don't know. I've also been having visions since hearing the news yesterday of my stepmother in the front room hospital bed in their house. The death rattle and my dad stoic, staying strong for my siblings, who I know will absolutely lose the plot, and finally, slipping away into the garden to sob it out. Why am I having these visions? Am I caring too much? Not enough? Most of you helped me to understand the situation in many different lights, and I so very much appreciate that. I'm hoping maybe you all can see from the fly-on-the-wall perspective after this update, and tell me if I'm being weak / too empathetic, and putting my own priorities in second place. Or if having compassion should change my mind and comfort him / them through this hard time, despite the mistakes that were made. I do want to note before the comments that what OP's feeling here, missing their father, you miss who your father was to you. You miss that connection you previously had. But the current version of your dad isn't your father. That is the man that chose to be complicit with your stepmother's abuse and even to this day is in that position. Relevant/top comments. OP on receiving support from other family members. Let me tell you right now, I am blessed with great in-laws and I miss them every day. They're in Japan, a whole world away, but I've just come back from a month's holiday with them and our bond grew stronger, especially with my father-in-law. They've made mistakes too, my husband has told me about them, but the reasons were different and more about sacrifices for the ones they loved as opposed to bus throwing. Even though they're far away, I so pine for them and their energy. I'm blessed to know them and that they accepted me into their family. Heart emoji. OP on why she's still speaking with her aunt when the aunt tells her to forgive her stepmother. OP responds, I hear you. As far as the guarantor thing, it's a really long and complicated story, spans over a year and a half of legal battle, but she's the only person that can enable us to move at this point, and we have to vacate by mid-August. Or I'll be breaking the settlement contract we all agreed to today in court. There is no one else, for real, and we need to get out of the hellhole we're in for more reasons than I want to think about. It's my family's D-Day, and I haven't been under so much stress for so long to let them be at jeopardy now. Even during my pregnancy and during the newborn graveyard shifts, I was teaching myself law and reading legislation until the sun came up, even while breastfeeding. No matter what, I need her to come on board. I'll die of stress if this falls through. I'm counting on her. This is the final hurdle to our freedom and being comfortable and safe for the years to come. Commenter. The family punching bag always feels guilty when they stop letting themselves be the scapegoat. It's been burned into you. It's how you're wired after spending your childhood like this. Normal feels like making yourself small and convenient for your father and stepmother and siblings. And for you, it is normal. But that doesn't make it okay or right. It's natural to feel like you miss familiar, but just because something is familiar does not make it good. Think back about what you wrote last time, about how cutting contact helped your mental health. Ask yourself if resuming it feels like it would be good for you. Sometimes we misidealize versions of what our family could have been or should have been, but the father, brother, and your sister you're longing to reconnect with are not the people you would meet if you went back. Those people never really existed. The people you would be reconnecting with are the same ones you left. I'm not trying to tell you what to do because it's your life and you deserve support no matter what decision you make. I just want to make sure you don't set yourself up for disappointment. All those old problems will still be there because none of them think they're actually problems and none of them have made any effort to change. You can tell from the ways they interact with you and the ways they don't interact with you. Update 2, July 7th, 2026. 4 days later. Nothing happened in between update 1 up until today. This is the second update. This evening my phone rang. My aunt's number. But when I picked up, it was my uncle. I kind of immediately knew what was up because I don't think we've ever spoken over the phone. Stepmother died on Sunday morning, and he was calling to tell me today. He was respectful in delivery and didn't make anything sound like a guilt trip or anything of the sort. He just let me know and said he respects my decisions going forward, whatever they may be. He also said everyone has been wrapped up in grief, obviously, and planning the funeral. We spoke some other niceties, how is such and such, we're okay over here, etc. And that was that. After the phone call, I was okay, but it felt very strange to be aware that someone has been around, and for most of your youth and adult life, and now, poof, they don't exist anymore. I spoke to my therapist this morning about everything further. We couldn't discuss that topic in length, but they did hit on, more than once, that I need to regroup and be kinder to myself. To life, my life, the way I want it to be, to reach my goals, to feel more content and accomplished. So I will. I still have a gut feeling that if I were to decide to reconnect with my father, that it's not the right time anytime soon, and I'm not sure when would be, but especially not when all emotions are still high. So I'll leave it at this. For now, in the foreseeable future, I will remain no contact. Maybe I'll send a condolences card or something, but I just feel like that's a bit colder? To just send some dead card with "I'm sorry for your loss" feels a bit generic to me. I don't know. Maybe I've gone too cold at this point. I'll focus on myself and my family and the things that make me feel better and tick off accomplishments as much as I can. I want to get back to the gym, crochet, start gardening, pottery, and I don't want to view them as temporary or distractions. I'll commit because I want to flower even more into appreciating myself, and I'll try to calm my busy mind. For anyone wondering, although my aunt rejected the guarantor plea I asked from her, I'm staying positive that we can move house within the next week. I've been having dizzy spells and nosebleeds many times each day due to the total stress I'm under. House, family, lawyers, heat wave, etc. And my blood pressure is tanked, but I'm praying that my 1.5-year fight is finally over and soon I can breathe easy again. For those of you wondering, it sounds like that OP was hoping the aunt would be a guarantor, as in a co-signer. But while similar, it is different. A guarantor essentially takes on financial responsibility if the primary signer defaults, but they do not live on the property. Co-signer, on the other hand, has a legal right to occupy the property or co-own the asset, while actively sharing joint responsibility for the debt. Similar, but different. Continuing, thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who supported me and left your opinions and shared your stories. Whether it worked out that I was the asshole or not, I appreciate whatever feedback I got. I may not post another update, but I might, in the future, if I ever make contact, if you ever remember my story. Look for my yellow daisy emoji. Edit, a lot of people are saying send flowers and or a card. I forgot to mention that my father and my family have moved, I guess in the time space relatively recently, and I don't know where they live. If I ask my aunt for the address, I know that my dad or siblings will either refute me or they'll think I'm sending a different message, looking for them, which I wouldn't be. What should I do if I ever want to get around this? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I agree with your therapist. Be kind to yourself, especially in the upcoming few weeks. I like that your uncle respects your space, and I hope your aunt will leave things be, now that your stepmother's passing has come to pass. Some people are really just afraid of being alone or something, and when they see a family member actually able and okay with cutting off contact to keep the peace, they feel and act defensive about it, even though it's not towards them. Good luck with your health, and I hope you can get that BP managed. Commenter 2. The yellow daisy thing got me. Really hoping OP gets that fresh start, new home, better health, and some actual calm after all of this. OP responds, thank you! I'll know by Friday or Monday latest when my life can change for the better. I wouldn't be surprised if the aunt rejected that request because OP rejected to see the stepmother before passing. As crazy as this is to say, the time to make amends is before you get your diagnosis. Because the moment you get your diagnosis, it sounds like you only care to actually apologize because you might be passing. It might sound contradictory to, try to make amends before your diagnosis, because how would you know you're going to be diagnosed, but that's the point. And yeah, that might be a harsh way of looking at things, but it does tell me that you had every intention to keep this feud or this spat going out of spite and not actually trying to make amends because reasons. However, in a case like this, I'd still be willing to at least listen because finding out you could be passing is going to make you reconsider a lot of shit in your life. It still sucks, though, that it took death knocking on your door to realize you actually value our relationship. However, in this case, this isn't what's happening. It's worse. To me, it sounds like OP was expected to just forgive and call it good. No active pursuit on the side of the stepmother, the father, or anyone to try and apologize for the life they gave OP. And her not wanting to show up? That's just the consequence of that. Moving forward, OP, I really do wish you the best, and I hope that you're able to get your housing situation finished, and I hope your child is able to grow up in a healthy environment, one that doesn't follow the sins of your stepmother. Good luck. And if your father comes knocking with an apology, it's gonna take time. Don't just immediately forgive him because he was complicit in the way that your stepmother treated you. He has to take accountability for that. And even if he does, still take it slow. Because unfortunately, you're never going to get back the father that you're grieving. This post was collected by Direct Caterpillar 77, and their tagline is, "Saying is not a pogo stick." Also, real quick, just a soft shout out to Direct Caterpillar because they have actually been helping me collect a lot of old best-ofs for me to record while I'm, taking my little quote-unquote vacation, which is really just me actually having a week off to relax at home. So just massive shout out for the help on that one, man. That's just incredible of you to do. The original OP is Note Excused, posted May 11th, 2019 to r/relationships. My 26 female, boyfriend 27 male over-explains everything. How do I approach it? We've been together 8 months, mostly long distance. I'm in his city for the next couple months for a work placement. It's great. We're seeing each other more frequently, but I've been feeling a little down about it, and I finally realized it's because he speechifies. We had a fantastic date night last night, and it was because he was more out of his own head and we were actually having conversations together, instead of him explaining things to me. It's how he shares his interests, so he usually goes into some minute detail about his work or hobby and explains it in detail. Often it's not relevant to a story or anything, he just enjoys explaining things and talking about his passions. Usually, I let it go, so it means 70% of our conversations are him talking to me about how X thing works. On rare occasions, he even explains simple things or things which are in my field of study. I'll point it out. Hun, I know how to do simple X task. Or, I actually did my master's on that, remember? But it has the effect of 1, bumming him out because he feels like I don't care about his hobbies, or 2, making him embarrassed. Good, he should feel sheepish about explaining my own field to me. Or 3, he doesn't seem to register it and kind of keeps on. From what I can tell, it's how he interacts with everyone, and how he fills the silence. I'm guessing it's from how his dad talks to him. Their conversations are basically just explaining things back and forth to each other, and even though they both know it because their work is the same. He's a little awkward, lacks social awareness, and neurotic. But I know he's a great guy who cares a lot and is passionate about his interests. He's really sweet and his heart is in the right place, and there's a hope because when he does get out of his own head, we have great mutual conversations. I'm also worried to introduce him to my parents because I'm almost certain he'll do the same thing to them instead of asking them what they do and otherwise making small talk. How do I bring this up without hurting him and so that he understands how speechifying / over-explaining as conversation is more condescending and feels like I'm watching a speech on X instead of having a conversation with / listening to a story about my boyfriend? Like, if he could be saying the exact same words in a class presentation and he's already been talking for 20 minutes, he might want to modify a smidge. Too long didn't read, my boyfriend's main way of sharing his interests is by explaining / speechifying. How do I bring up that this feels condescending and one-sided, and / or that it makes for poor conversations? Top comment. Loud contribution. I dated a guy like this once and we had very similar conversations. Whenever I would say, I know how that works, he would get defensive and act like I was angry with him for trying to explain something. It is possible that he's insecure in other parts of his life, so he may be overcompensating by seeming like an expert in this field. If you're worried about him meeting your parents because of this, maybe sit down and just say, I love how passionate you are about topic, and I really hope my parents can see what a cool guy you are, but it would mean a lot to me if you just talked mostly about their interests so they stay more engaged in the conversation. I think that would make them like you. Worst case scenario, you can try to change the subject if he drones on. As a side note, this was the first thing my mom noticed about my ex, and the first thing she said after we broke up was, that guy really thought he was smarter than everyone, huh? So, keep in mind that your parents will definitely pick up on it. Update. I have yet to bring it up, but I want to thank everyone for being kind in responses. I thought people would either jump to DTMF or that I was exaggerating. So, I appreciate the kind and measured responses. They've been very helpful, and I'll be keeping a lot of them in mind when I do bring it up. Update. July 13th, 2019, 2 months later. Update to this question. There was quite a bit of traction on the question and many encouraging answers. For anyone in a similar situation, I figured an update might be helpful. We had a few conversations about how he spoke to me. One time he started getting emotional and then turned it back on himself. How he can't explain himself well, instead of acknowledging how hurtful it was to me. I spent the hour after making him feel cared for and abandoning the goal of the conversation. The second time was much more productive, but nothing changed. There were other contributing factors, upcoming long distance, difference in hobbies, he wasn't taking care of himself physically, i.e. wouldn't brush his teeth, but ultimately, I broke up with him. It's been 3 weeks now. There was a lot of good in the relationship. He was kind, giving, an amazing adventure buddy, but I felt alone, anxious, and like he didn't care to know about me, even though he was a good listener. I need someone who shows active interest. I cried the day of, but ever since it feels like a weight has been lifted. I've been chatting on some dating apps, and I'm now much more aware of people who just talk about themselves. And I'm having some good conversations, though I haven't met up with anyone yet. I'm hopeful for a partner who will be a little more similar to me in communication. Too long didn't read, broke up with boyfriend who over-explains everything. I feel like an emotional weight has been lifted, and I didn't realize how anxious it was making me. So, I'm gonna be real, the ex-boyfriend sounds entirely undiagnosed. I recognize a lot of these traits. These were problems that I had in high school and a little bit in my early 20s. It took me a lot to kind of unlearn them and figure out other ways to communicate. Hell, sometimes I still fall into this trap where I get really excited about something and I just fucking info dump to hell and back. And the problem is that in my mind it's, I care about you and I want to give you all the information that I have so that way we can be on the same page. But it doesn't always come across that way. And, I recognize that now, but it took me a bit to learn that. It also really doesn't help if that was just kind of how he was raised to communicate with his father, where they both kind of info dump their special interests and it just compounds, and he's probably just never been fully corrected on it, or made aware of how it makes other people feel. I'm not saying it justifies him taking up 70% of conversations and putting OP in a position where, when he breaks down because he realizes how hurtful his form of communication is, OP then has to change the tactic from addressing the elephant in the room to now consoling and comforting him. He's definitely not an evil person. I think he just needs a push in the right direction and to do some growing and learning, and at this point in his life, he just wasn't ready for a relationship. He had too many gears going in the wrong direction. This post was collected by Big O Nerd. The original OP is Little One 9390, posted to r/mytheasshole December 15th, 2020. Am I the asshole for refusing to apologize to a coworker over an Xbox? For context, this would be taking place when the Xbox Series X would be first released. I work in a toy store on the gaming department. My sister asked me if I could get an Xbox Series X for my nephew for Christmas. I explained that they were sold on a first-come, first-served basis, even to staff, but I would try and get one. Last week, I rang the store to see if there were Xboxes in on delivery. My manager, Jack, said there was one left. I said I'd try and get there before it goes. Jack offered to hold it for me until I started my shift later that day. He told my colleague, George, over the radio not to sell it, and I heard George acknowledge. I arrive a couple of hours later on my shift and ask George to put through the Xbox. He tells me that he's already called his friend who wants one, that he can buy the one that's left, and he's waiting outside. I tell him it had been held for me, which he knew about, and regardless, it is first come, first served, and I was here first. George then gets aggressive and angry, refuses to serve me, and starts talking on the phone to his mate. He then tried to guilt trip me, saying it's for his mate's son. I tell him it's for my nephew, and he gets angrier. I call Jack down and explain. Jack tells George to go back on his break, to which George gets in my manager's face. Jack tells him to leave for his break or he'll send him home for threatening behavior. George leaves, whilst calling me a fucking bitch. George hasn't spoken to me since. On the day this happened, I was so upset that I couldn't work on my department with him, and I spent most of my shift crying because of the name-calling and snide comments I'd been getting off him. I spoke to another coworker, Sarah, about it because I didn't know what to do. She told me George had been saying I had been aggressive and intimidating to him, and that I should apologize to him. No one believes his story, as there were multiple witnesses to the incident. Am I the asshole for not apologizing? I don't believe I did anything wrong. He's the one continuing to ignore me, make snide comments, and call me names when he thinks I can't hear. I really don't want to fall out over an Xbox, and I know it sounds petty, but I'm not going to feel guilty for buying the Xbox or for not apologizing when I haven't done anything wrong. I'm kind of scared to work alone with him now because I don't know what he's gonna be like. Edit, after posting this, I immediately came off here because I was so worried I was gonna be called the asshole in this situation. Thank you to everyone so much for your comments and advice. I have a day off today, but I'm scheduled in tomorrow, so I'm going to speak to Jack then. Honestly, it didn't even occur to me that what George is doing is harassment or bullying, and I don't know why, but until you guys pointed it out, I didn't think like that. Thank you guys so much for your help and advice, and I will post an update in a few days and see what happens. Comments. Cole Del Rio. George was fully intending to sell that Xbox before you showed up. However, info. Why didn't you go buy it immediately? OP responds, I intended to, but my manager told me he would hold it aside for me and told George I was going to buy it. As this was a phone call, I heard Jack's radio call to George and his acknowledgement of the call. User WarDog008. Not the asshole. George agreed to hold it for you and sounds like a total wanker. Frankly, I'd have fired him on the spot if I was in the manager's shoes. User Lazari069 comments, not the asshole. You said it yourself. It's being sold on a first-come, first-served basis. You came first. He knew it was being held for you, but he called his friend anyway. You don't need to apologize to him. He needs to apologize to you. User Ms. Backman86 comments, not the asshole. Apologize for? ? If George needed a reserved Xbox, the time to speak up would have been when he was instructed to hold one. He actually called his friend after he was instructed to hold it. Then, he was rude and disrespectful to you and your boss, almost getting sent home for his behavior. And the petty sniping will only get him further trouble. You did the right thing, the right way. Fuck George. Consensus, not the asshole. Final update after 19 days, January 3rd, 2021. I know it's been a while since my post, but I wanted to be able to give the full update. I spoke to Jack, and he told me George had come to him a week or so after the incident and apologized. He said he overreacted to him and shouldn't have done what he did to him. Jack accepted his apology, however, because it was aggressive behavior, he did get a note on his file. George accepted the punishment, and they both agreed to put it behind them. After getting all the responses I did, I said to Jack that George's behavior could be considered bullying, and he agreed. So he said he would speak to my other coworker, Sarah, as she was witness to his behavior. I don't know how that meeting went, as me and Sarah haven't worked on shift together, but from what happened on Christmas Eve, I assume she spoke up for me. Me and George were scheduled to work Xmas Eve together. It didn't bother me, I knew we would be busy, so we would barely have time to speak to each other. I started before George to prep for opening, and he was starting when the store opened. He arrived a bit early, like normal, and he had a massive gift bag with him. He came straight up to me, held out the gift bag, and gave a huge apology speech. I cried, he cried, and we hugged it out. He brought me a bottle of Prosecco, chocolates, and various other stuff. I genuinely believed he was sorry. He said he was out of order and he's disgusted with himself for how he treated me, and he didn't speak to me because he was embarrassed and scared that he had lost me as a friend. I believe he's truly sorry. We've decided to draw a line under it, and we've been getting on really since. It's like how we used to be. I want to thank everyone for your advice and guidance. I don't think I would have got this resolution if it wasn't for the sub. Thank you all so much. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this much of a response. I'm trying to reply to comments, but there are so many. Thanks to everyone for their kind words and support. I'm so happy and relieved that this was the outcome. However, thanks to COVID, both myself and George are furloughed, along with a lot of other staff, so we're now currently not working for the foreseeable, which I'm gutted about, but I'm thankful I'm still employed and everything at work is, hopefully, gonna be fine. Comments, Team Chaos 17. I'm glad you feel like you can draw a line under this incident, but yo, George physically threatened your manager. That's not normal behavior. But buying presents is a technique that abusive people use after a blow-up. I'd forgive, but not forget, and I'm glad that this is in his file at work. OP responds, I think there are other issues with him outside of work. It doesn't excuse it, but I'm hoping now we've been furloughed, he's gonna use this time to get all his shit sorted and come back. Whenever we come back, he'll be better for it. I'm deciding to draw a line under it just to be an adult about it, but if this happens again, it'll be a different story, I think. Team Chaos 17 responds further, sorry about the furlough, that really sucks, but yeah, like I said, forgive but don't forget, and it sounds like you are. And hopefully he gets his issues outside of work sorted, or at bare minimum, realizes work means putting aside those issues while on the clock. OP responds, yeah, it sucks, but to be honest, after the Xmas we've had at work, I'm glad to have some time off. I hope he does too. I want to support him as much as I can through whatever issues he's having. He's helped me a lot over the past couple of years. User Poopanoob comments, how long is the time off? Is it because of an increase of COVID? OP responds, we aren't sure. I was told 2nd of January I was being furloughed, potentially until April. Boris Johnson announced last night another national lockdown until the middle of February, so I don't know. It's this new variant of COVID that's more transmissible, and to be honest, this country dealing with COVID has been an absolute shambles. User King Jonesy 1992 comments, this is awesome. Also, as a bloke I'd say, If he went and bought the gifts for you, then I'd consider that a genuine apology. Fair play. OP responds, it was nice Prosecco and chocolate as well. Haha. User Seaspirit55 comments, am I the only one who suspects George mate is imaginary? Don't know why, but George's out of proportion reaction makes me believe he wanted the Xbox for himself. Either way, not the asshole. OP responds, it's possible, but I know George already had an Xbox because he got a pre-order. I honestly think he has other stuff going on outside of work and everything just got to him. Doesn't excuse it, but I think there is something else going on. User Cody comments, I'm happy you two buried the hatchet, but am I the only one confused how he still got a job after cussing out his boss? I remember working in retail. If you look at your boss sideways, you're canned, much less actively swearing at them and acting in a threatening manner. OP responds, I think they took into consideration that he's a good worker and great with the customers, and this was very out of character. He also apologized to my manager pretty quickly, just not me. It takes a lot to be fired on the spot in the UK. It's a good and bad thing sometimes. Cody responds, the UK with those pesky workers' rights and mutual respect. Sarcastic. I'm happy y'all got it worked out. I guess this yank is just a bit jaded. OP responds, sometimes I think there are some people who should be fired on the spot, haha, but yeah, we're so much better off in the US if what I've heard about their working environments are true. Personally, I don't trust a big gift basket, especially with how long it took him to respond or apologize to OP and actually, rectify the problem. It feels like he realized he might be in deep shit and decided to apologize, over the top to maybe prolong his stay at his job. I agree with the first commenter, forgive but don't forget. Because love bombing is a way that some people who have abusive tendencies will try to get away with some of their mistakes. Because if he felt bad from square one, he wouldn't have been talking shit behind OP's back and stirring the pot. That just doesn't sit right with me. Now, if he gave the gift basket and then also explained to other colleagues that he was in the wrong and actively tried to pursue the fact of, hey, what I was saying was fucked up, please disregard that, and actually put himself in a position of trying to apologize on top of the gift basket, I'd actually be more inclined to believe that. Because there's a difference between giving a gift basket and making amends with everyone and trying to take accountability for your actions, and just giving a gift basket and then calling it good and never properly apologizing or trying to correct the record with the others. That's just my 2 cents. Also, this is kind of a bit of a niche memory here, but I remember when the Xbox Series X first came out, and due to the PlayStation shortage, everyone was rushing to get an Xbox, but the problem was, some fucking idiot at Target decided to sell a mini fridge that looked just like a Series X, so a lot of people purchased the new Xbox thinking, damn, I got a great deal on this, only to open the box and realize, this is a fucking mini fridge, shaped just like the console. Whose idea was this? Back in my day, YouTubers at the end of their outro used to say, don't forget to like and subscribe. And these days, we just have them pushing their code. Code Eyes at checkout for gamer subs for 10% off. Come on. Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the dubstep? Where's the stock library After Effects effects that play on screen and have an epilepsy warning? Come on. On another note, I saw a post, I think it was on Tumblr or Reddit, don't remember where, but someone had said their 3-year-old, when saying goodnight, said, don't forget to like and subscribe, which means that, in their mind, that is an acceptable way to say goodbye, because that's how every video ended that they were watching. So now, in honor of that, when I say goodbye to people, without context, I'm now just gonna say, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave without any context. Real YouTube users will remember when you had to rate the video, and below there was a built-in bar for reaction videos attached to it.